do with how am I to respond to them. In other words, the action. How am I to act toward them? That's the way that love, I believe, in my mind, tends to be most like God's love. Because if we try to look at it as a feeling and that God's telling us we really need to love our brothers, then we get either into this works thing where we're constantly trying to prove to somebody that we love them because of that, or we just tend to hang with certain people because they're easier to love than others are. So I guess the fact that this kind of stuck with me a little bit is that I think I tend to lean a little bit toward the idea of God's love being a feeling at times rather than what that love really is about. Because it's always about His glory. It's always about that sense of what His calling is in our lives. And my hope for you is that when you think of, does God love me, you can look at the actions of a God who would send His own Son to die for you. He would never have to say, I just really enjoy being with you, but the Bible says He does. But I think more importantly, if He never did another thing, God's love for you has been most adequately expressed in ways that you and I could never do. But again, He did that not just so that you'd feel good about Him, but so that you would realize that He's inviting you into a kingdom work, not only that has eternal significance, but will give you a fulfillment in your life doing the very things as you act out that love that will reflect most His glory. Does that make sense? And I hope that you can sense that, because I never want anybody in here to feel that they're not loved from God because they don't feel like it. God pretty much demonstrated that a long time ago, and he does so believing much like the prodigal's father, who didn't come, when the prodigal returned, he didn't say, "Oh, I've missed you so much. I just love being with you." He didn't just say, "You make me feel so good being here." He said, "My son was dead and he's alive." Do you hear the difference in there? That's God's sense of His love for you. You were dead. In fact, you were an enemy of God's. And until people recognize that they were an enemy of God, I don't think they ever recognize that He loves them. And with that in mind, it takes me to Romans 5:8. God shows His love for us in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. You've heard that verse. Since therefore we have been justified by His blood, much more shall we be saved by Him from the wrath of God. For if while we were enemies, it says it very clearly right there, if while we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of His Son, much more now that we are reconciled, shall we be saved by His life. That's a God who loves, and a God who will never stop loving you like that. He is determined, and nothing's going to keep Him from being able to finish what He started in you. He is determined to love you into His kingdom, to the point to where He will look at you and He can say, "Well done." It's not a question of saying, "Sure glad you're here. I feel so much better when you're around." All right, that's I think gets us a little bit off track. But you were dead, now you're alive. He was lost, and now He's found. And that's what I hope. Even when we sing a song like His love never fails, it's not just God is always kind of looking at me like, "Gee, I wish I could be with you." It's more a question of, I hope you know what I've done for you, so that the motivation of you loving others comes from that sense that will never change. I'm always going to pour that out toward you. And if you believe that, then I think it's a lot easier for you to know how to respond to other people, because you were an enemy of His, and now you're not. You were lost, now you're found. And those are great promises from Him. We're going to enter into a thank you service next weekend. We're singing both Saturday and Sunday. There's a song that you have in your